Hello, USL League One fans. Alex from League One Updater here. We've had another strong week of signings throughout the league, and rosters are starting to fill out. Just wanted to do a quick rundown on our offseason power rankings and the context behind them based on the moves that each club has made this week. We're going to start from the bottom where Fuego FC remains. The club made one announcement this week, re-signing Diego Casillas. He was a core midfielder from the 2022 squad. The club does have a solid midfield from Casillas to Jose Carrera Garcia, who moved over from the Red Wolves, Alexis Cerritos, David Diaz, and Sharif Diaye. But the most important thing that this club lacks right now, defenders and some more forwards to surround Villan Bijev. Christian Chaney was a huge loss to Fuego FC, and so far they have not replaced him. At 11, we have Hailstorm FC. I moved them down from number 9 because they only made a couple of minor moves, while some teams below them last week made some much bigger ones. The club re-signed forward Marky Hernandez, who had 10 starts, 23 appearances, 2 goals, and 3 assists in 2022. They also added a first-time pro, 18-year-old McKean Clark, a kid from Colorado. So, great for him, but we'll see. I don't know how much of an impact someone like that will have, but, wish him luck. But remember, this is a club that last year barely missed out on the playoffs in their expansion year. They retained a good bit of the core that got them there, but they also haven't added anything more on top. They'll also start the season with an extended road trip going back and forth between Northern Colorado and Chattanooga, Statesboro, Georgia, Richmond, Omaha, Knoxville, and Madison before finally hosting Fuego FC at home on May 27th. Speaking of home, Ticket Smarter Stadium will not be ready by then, and the word is that the club will host using auxiliary fields in the larger Future Legends complex that the stadium will be a part of. So at least they'll have the complex to call home. Maybe that'll provide some stability even while they wait to be able to host larger amounts of fans there, and we hope that they do get those larger amounts of fans. Next up, we got Chattanooga Red Wolves, the league's 2022 playoff runners-up. It's been a brutal offseason for Red Wolves fans as star after star has signed elsewhere or is still in limbo and improbable to return. This week, they brought on Christian Enriquez, who wasn't a part of Forward Madison's rebuild. Maybe he'll find his place in Chattanooga, but he's definitely a wait-and-see type of player for their midfield. They also brought on a Jamaican forward named Siobhan Marsh, who last played in the Costa Rican Primera Division. This is another wait-and-see signing. The coach, Ziggy, he's kind of hyping him up, but like I said, we just have to wait and see. They also added a Nissa veteran to the midfield, Felipe Liborio Jr. I believe he came from California United Strikers FC. So maybe the club can make up a bunch of their lost goals with this roster, but they really don't seem to have a pure goal scorer outside of Mo Espinosa, who they did manage to re-sign in the offseason. Next up is Lexington SC. I moved Lexington up again based on the roster moves compared to those below them in the rankings, but I can't really bring them higher than this with the lineup as it stands. One thing to keep in mind here, and I've heard other people who cover the league, like the Walkin' 90 podcast folks, mention this, that Lexington seems to be building long-term rather than for immediate impact. And there's definitely still some time and available talent out there to bring on some really big guns, but so far many of their signings are young and hungry guys right out of college and from Nissa. And who knows, young and hungry might surprise everyone, but this is another wait-and-see type of roster. They'll get their first test at Knoxville, and then we'll get to see if Knoxville's in-it-to-win-it roster is more powerful than Lexington's long-term built-to-last type roster. And we'll get to Knoxville in a few minutes. And then Lexington goes to North Carolina, a club full of veterans, and then Forward Madison and Tormenta, clubs with some veterans and genuine star power. And then Greenville, which is another veteran-heavy roster. Then there's Union Omaha. We've mentioned this several times, but the successful club is on the edge. This offseason, we haven't had many roster moves outside of Ryan Jiba's transfer out, but the club did give us a coach this week, news of a new head coach, but it did not come with any player signings. Club has a solid midfield, only one confirmed keeper, defender, and forward. Granted, that keeper is Nuhu, who's the best keeper in the league. We do look forward to some signing announcements this week, maybe. I'm sure that you Owls fans do as well. But for now, we have Union Omaha outside of the playoff bubble. Next up is Charlotte Independence. Dropping out of the top 6 this week. We won't go deep into the legal matters they're dealing with. Check out the excellent coverage, the excellent write-up that protagonistsoccer.com put out this week if you want the full details and the scoop from both sides. The too long didn't read version is that the USLPA, the Players Union covering USL Championship and as of this season USL 1, filed a grievance in federal court on behalf of former Independence player Enzo Martinez for failure to pay out his championship contract when Charlotte self-relegated from championship to USL 1. Now, Charlotte did give us a signing announcement early Saturday morning when they told us they brought back longtime pro veteran Gabriel Obertan for one more year. Obertan played in, 16 matches, the last 16 matches for Charlotte, and he was certainly a huge factor in pushing them into the final playoff spot with his 4 goals and 3 assists during that time. He will certainly be a force for Charlotte if he remains healthy throughout the 2023 season, based on his performance down the stretch in 2022. The club still doesn't have a goalie. They relied on a series of loans last year and Keegan Meyer, who is now retired. It remains to be seen if the Players Union action becomes a factor in retaining or attracting further talent, but the club does have an attractive core as a selling point, even if the front office might be a little sus right now. Now we're going to move into the top 6. This is the playoff bubble. As of right now, preseason, no games played, just based on current rosters and roster moves in the offseason. One Knox SC is our other expansion side besides Lexington SC, and One Knox had a little bit of a head start on Lexington SC. It was technically promoted from USL 2. They started signing players almost immediately. That being said, the club has opened up the wallet to welcome in some multiple talented veterans from USL 1 Championship and from Europe, even if they didn't make any moves this week. We moved them up after moving Charlotte down, but there's no denying that One Knox's big known strength going into the 2023 season is their defense. Specifically, Jalen Chrysler and Jordan Skelton, who bring tons of experience and leadership from Richmond and NCFC, and Jen Eric Linhos, who brings experience playing with some of the best in USL Championship. I think the rest of the roster is also full of a lot of veteran talent and a few newcomers, but we're going to remain in wait-and-see mode to see if they can actually form a coherent offense together. But for now, we'll put them at number 6. Next up is Forward Madison, who also moves up a notch into number 5. Forward Madison brought on 4 new players last week, including veteran defender Sam Brotherson, midfielders Jaden Onen and Adian Messias, and forward Maru Sichiro. Hope I pronounced that correctly. I need to get a pronunciation guide going here. He joins Christian Cheney, Nazim Bartman, and Derek Gebhardt up front for a pretty solid front line. Jaden Onen has a little bit of hype coming. He's spent the last 4 years training but rarely appearing with multiple English clubs. Now, some on Reddit had mentioned the Kaz Sterling path. Not sure if Onan is the next Sterling. Sterling was, of course, a floundering English product who came into USL One and immediately dominated. I'm sure all clubs are salivating at the chance to land the next Sterling, the next Terzaghi. People who played in their home countries and were kind of at their wits' end and came over here and found success. But in any case, maybe Onan will find his place in Madison as the one who is going to be feeding those assists to Christian Chaney. At number 4, we have defending league champions Tormenta FC. This week, the club lost comeback player of the year Adrian Bilhart to free agency. He moves up a level to sign with USL Championship side Detroit City FC. They did sign Matthias Cassini from Forward Madison the week before, which now makes a lot of sense. I heard some talk out of Madison that, amongst fans, speculation of course, that he either wanted to move up or retire. So Tormenta, sensing the inability to keep Bilhart, must have made it worth his while. Statistically, they both had 5 goals and 5 assists in 2022, so we'll see how it works out. We've also heard of Cassini's discipline issues in Madison, so that's going to be, might present a challenge. However, Tormenta FC also added midfielder Elijah Amo from Maryland Bobcats. Amo is a Real Salt Lake draft pick who ended up with the Bobcats last season, where he had 5 goals and 4 assists. Coach Ian Cameron told Protagonist Soccer that he believes Amo is a top caliber player who simply fell through the cracks. Based on that, I'd say look for him to definitely compete for a starting slot in the midfield there in South Georgia. And in any case, I want to point out that Tormenta is just barely ranked below our next club in the rankings. I just had to pick someone to be 4 and someone to be 3, but they're virtually tied. The next one being Greenville Triumph. Greenville did not make any moves this week. No announcements. They still have a very strong core around which they continue to build. But remember that this is a core that finished second in the league last year and still retains, a good number of those players. Jacob Lavowitz, in particular, moves into his second season. He's going to be exciting to see if he can replicate his outstanding first year where he scored 12 goals. So, number 2, on to Richmond, who re-signed Zaka Moran this week. Zaka was the anchor of one of the best midfields in the league in 2022. He joins Nil Vinhos as the returning midfield veteran. And filling out the midfield for now is 2022 bench player Chandler O'Dwyer, who was optioned, and newcomer and I believe first-time pro João Gomiero. Obviously, these two don't exactly replace Ethan Bryant and Jonathan Bolaños, but, we'll see, if that need is still going to be filled from outside, and or what Coach Darren's plans are for O'Dwyer and Gomiero in all of this. But Moran and Vinhos were a huge part of Richmond's success last year, so bringing back Moran is that's pretty big for Richmond. And of course, that leaves our number 1, and I think at this point I'm still the only one who has North Carolina FC in the top spot. I know a lot of others are expecting better things than their last place finishes the last 2 years in USL One, I think I've heard that some others, including Walking 90, had them just inside the playoff bubble. I still have them as number 1 because they have the most complete lineup at this time. This week they added Tor Saunders from Indy 11. He had been a backup on loan to Red Wolves last year, where he made 4 starts in 5 appearances. While Nick Holiday, their other goalkeeper, is the hot young keeper with a growing amount of hype. Coach John Bradford did not indicate an established starter. Sounds like they're just leaving it open for the two to compete for it. You know, Saunders has been signed to Nashville SC and Indy 11, but he never actually appeared. I don't believe he actually made any appearances for either side. So he brings plenty of training and practice at the higher levels. Holiday, meanwhile, was the backup last year to Will Pulisic. He right now is in Germany training with Dusseldorf. That's good. That's some good training for a young kid. So there's been some talk around USL League One circles that Holiday is destined to be transferred out eventually for a hefty fee. Maybe we'll see. That would be awesome for him. We do know that Will Pulisic will not be back. He's no longer loaned to the club, and he was released by Austin FC. He's currently a free agent. So I guess in goal it does come down to Holiday and Saunders unless somebody else steps in. Oh, that's all for me. That's all for my weekly rundown. I want to give a huge shout out to the following USL and soccer content creators for their excellent coverage and podcasts this week, which definitely I used referenced a lot of your links in some of my content, and took into account your opinions and your context. It was all so great to listen to this week. In particular, Walk-In 90, USL League One Review, the USL Show, Protagonist Soccer, River City 93, Who Gives a Hoot, and Crane Kicks Lex. So until next week.